Hello and welcome to Myth Monsters. My name is Erin and I'll be your host for these little snack bite-sized podcasts on folklore and mythical monsters from around the world. These podcasts focus on the actual cryptids, folklore and mythic monsters from global mythology, rather than focusing on the full stories of heroes and their big adventures. I'll also be dropping in some references that they have to recent culture and where you can see these represented in modern day content so that you can learn more and get as obsessed as I am about these absolute legends of the mythological world. Hello, sorry, I've been off again, but you know why? It's because I caught the flu. Typical that I would come back and then get the flu and not be able to do anything, but I'm recovering well, thank you for asking. I'm sure you can hear the huskiness in my voice. But whilst I was resting and relaxing, I rewatched the gem that is Van Helsing from the Noughties with Hugh Jackman, and this monster came to mind whilst I was admiring his rippling pectorals and thinking about how he would sing anything in it. And you may be thinking, well, Erin, we have done vampires before, so why would I want to listen to more vampire stuff? And the answer to that is shh. Everyone loves vampire. And this one's a bit different, so there. This one is different though, and you may be familiar with them if you're a Marvel fan, but this week we're heading over to Balkan mythology for the day-walking Dhampir. But what is a Dhampir, I hear you call? They are typically described as hybrid humanoid vampiric monsters who have some powers of vampires but can exist as humans during the day, most of the time. They are usually more human-looking too, and they will often be incredibly beautiful, but have untamed black hair, a more pronounced nose, larger teeth, eyes and ears. In a few legends, it was said that Dhampir had no nails or bones, making them big squishy boys who would often not live for very long. You could tell them apart from normal humans, as they would have a deep mark on their back like a tail, they wouldn't cast any shadow, and obviously sometimes they would need to consume blood. Dhampir are slightly different because, as I mentioned earlier, they are hybrids. But hybrids with what? Humans. Dhampir are the offspring of a vampire and a human, usually from a male vampire and a female human who was bitten by a vampire in her last few months of pregnancy, or just from usual mating. The birth is incredibly difficult. The human mother would usually need to be turned into a vampire herself to survive the pregnancy, or at least feed on blood to feed the unborn child. Usually, if the mother is not turned, they will die during childbirth to these hybrids. And the children Dhampir are born with intense bloodlust, and they grow very quickly. They are very often looked down upon from the human and vampire communities, and are often outcasts to both cultures. Dhampir typically have powers similar to vampires, however slightly dampened ones, if you pardon the pun here. They are not usually immortal, but will have massively extended lifespans, for thousands of years sometimes too. They typically stop physically aging at middle age, and whilst they come up to maturity, they have rapid growth and extreme bloodlust. Also, a weird fact is that they also remember every event from birth. So they have an awesome memory and are incredibly intelligent from a very young age. They can regenerate when injured and are extremely resilient to damage, although they cannot regenerate limbs such as full vampires can. They have heightened senses, such as being able to see in pitch black. They use echolocation and sense blood in any living being, as well as having a fantastic sense of smell. They're still immensely strong and fast, able to jump great heights and run for long distances at immense speed, and sometimes are considered to have mind control or charm abilities from their vampire lineage. Lastly, some Dhampir are believed to practice magic, which is helpful as they can control their own bloodlust with it. They often also go into vampire hunting, and any magic is great against a horde of angry vampires. Most importantly though, they don't have the vampire's weaknesses. They can withstand being in the sun, which gives them their daywalker moniker. They are also unaffected by holy water, garlic, crosses and silver, but in some stories they can affect them, just in a much more minor way to their vampiric kin. They'll be intolerant to garlic or allergic reaction, that kind of thing. They're also just not as physically strong as normal vampires, as they are not full-blooded, so this is kind of a weak point. Their biggest weakness, though, is that they are still slaves to their own bloodlust. They can eat human food, but still need to satiate that part of them. Often, Dhampir will find a controlled source, such as hospitals or blood banks to ethically consume blood, or even drink from animals instead of humans. However, they can fully lean into their vampiric side for stronger abilities, but most reject this lifestyle. Dhampir can be found throughout the world, but much like their vampiric family, they are often found in remote villages or forests, living away from the living to ensure their safety and the safety of humans around them. Most Dhampir are nomads living off the land, and as they usually go into vampire hunting, they keep off the road anyway to ensure their next kill. Dhampir can reproduce, and they can reproduce with humans or vampires. However, due to their vampiric nature, their fertility is considerably lacking, as they are technically half undead. This makes Dhampir rare in the first place because of the vampiric infertility, but they're also more likely to have children with humans, which dampens the vampiric bloodline even further. They can still die though, mostly through being killed rather than through natural causes. You can still stake them through the heart, set them on fire, or cut their head off. They're realistically vampires, just not as strong. You wouldn't be able to kill them with a silver bullet, but it would certainly hurt them a considerable amount. Now, moving on to etymology. The word Dhampir comes from the Albanian word dam, meaning teeth, and pyre, meaning to drink. So effectively meaning to drink with one's teeth, which is perfect. It's incredibly fitting. There are some regional variances though, such as in Serbia, Vampurovic was used instead of Dhampir, which means vampire's son. In Bulgaria it was glog, meaning hawthorn, which is often used as a charm against vampires in Slavic countries. And in Albania, Dhampiraj is also a very common surname and is very often linked to Dhampir because it is contained in that. Their history is a little bit harder to pin down in folklore though, and we believe that they've actually been around as long as vampires have, and they come from the same place, the Balkan or Eastern European folklore spaces, such as Albania, Romania, Slovakia and Bulgaria during the early 18th century. There were mentions of vampires back in 12th century Britain, in Scandinavia and in Jewish literature. However, the rumours of vampires started spreading in the early 1700s to around 1721, when word of mouth started spreading them around southeastern Europe. In the mid-18th century, there was a mass vampire hysteria in a lot of these countries, and they even had public executions of people believed to be vampires. Dhampir, however, were never mentioned in these history books. What is interesting is that with vampires, especially male vampires, there is an element of sex here. And I mean this as vampirism is very often linked to lust and brutal sexuality, and with male vampires, it was believed that they had a great desire for human women, or any women really. A vampire would return to his human wife after being turned and impregnate her, or even to a woman he found attractive in life, or virgin girls too. It was very uncommon for a female vampire and a human male to have a Dhampir child, as female vampires were more commonly attracted to other vampires rather than the weaker mating human species. However, both variants are rare, as vampires are considered sterile, as they are technically undead. That's about how it goes. In Serbia, there was a case where a woman blamed her pregnancy on her late vampiric husband, and there were cases of Serbian men pretending to be vampires to get the ladies they were after. So it was commonly thought in myth spaces, at the very least. In folklore, there is a story about two twins who were Dhampir children, born to a witch. This witch used her magic to create potions that helped her daughters control their intense thirst for blood. Over time, a butcher shop in town was opened to produce a special serum made from various ingredients like crystals, alcoholic drinks and animal blood. This serum helped the Dhampirs manage their cravings better than regular vampires can. However, as these hybrid twins grew, the serum became much less effective, requiring larger doses or new formulations to keep them working. And that's about it with that story. It trails off. There's not really much else with history around Dhampir. They were more of a concept born from the vampire myths, so they're a little tricky to find actual content on. One of the best representations of Dhampir is actually Marvel's Blade, which I know are old films with a notorious tax dodger in, but they are great for showing how a daywalker would survive. Another is the Underworld series of movies. Modern media sometimes shows us monsters better than even folklore can. Reality-based comparisons are a little bit harder to do this week, as we don't really have hybrid scenarios cross-species that have any kind of powers reflected within the natural world, especially humanoid ones. But mythical ones, we have a few. Obviously their vampiric bloodline is very easy to point to, but naturally their enemy race of werewolves are too. There are theories that this can also happen with werewolves, but they don't have a specific name for their hybrids. They just don't turn into full werewolves in a full moon scenario, and they can't spread their affliction. You can find out more about both of these monsters on their own special Halloween episodes over the last few years. The most relevant comparison is actually a monster we haven't covered yet, the Cambion. The Cambion is a half-human, half-demon, born usually from a succubus or incubus and a human partner. Although they are argued that they don't exist. A succubus usually store the human male semen that they steal to pass on to their incubus partner to corrupt. The argument also exists that sometimes this fails and a hybrid is born. I'm sure I'll cover them soon enough, but they are our most relevant comparison with demon and human heritage and powers. If you want to know more about the succubus and incubus, I covered them in a Valentine special a few years back. Now, moving on to modern media, we have a bunch for this monster because, duh, they're vampires. But we also love a vampire hybrid within media, so let's get into it. For art, honestly, you would be better looking at full vampires for the portrait art here. There's nothing on Dhampir. However, you can look at the art from the Castlevania series, for instance, or independent stuff for some really cool depictions of them. But in movies, we have Hotel Transylvania, Dhampir, Underworld, Twilight, Blade, Vampire Hunter D, Blood, The Last Vampire, Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, Blood Rain, Daughter of Darkness, Embrace of the Vampire, Zombies, Dawn of the Vampires, Tales of an Ancient Empire, Vamps, Zoltan, Hound of Dracula, The Monster Club, Priest, Vampire in Brooklyn, Dawn, Grave of the Vampire, Vampire Cleanup Department, Dracula 2000, and Die Vampirschwesten. For TV, we have Castlevania, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Rosario plus Vampire, Angel, Split, Vampire Academy, Drac Pack, Kamen Rider Kiva, The Monsters, Immortal, Flint the Time Detective, Hemlock Grove, La Luna Sangre, The Strain, and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. In video games, we have ones such as Blood Rain, Castlevania, Vampire Hunter D, EverQuest, Heroes of New Earth, Cold Sept Saga, Disciples 2 Dark Prophecy, Kid Dracula, One Chambara Z, Kagura, Scribblenauts, Blood Knights, Darkstalkers, Nightwalker, The Midnight Detective, The Elder Scrolls, Akumeu Dracula, League of Legends, Nocturne, Vampire Knight, Retro Mud, Five Nights at Freddy's Sister Location, Boktai, Infinite Crisis, and Blaze Blue. My book recommendation this week is for a few bits, and none of them are about Dhampir directly, but are all included within it. Have a look at Vampires, A Handbook of History and Lore of the Undead by Agnes Hollyhock, Hanging with Vampires, A Totally Factual Field Guide to the Supernatural by Incha Fitzpatrick, or From Demons to Dracula, The Creation of the Modern Vampire Myth by Matthew Beresford for some really great vampire facts. But now it's time for Do I Think They Existed? Just like normal vampires, I'm going to say maybe. The issue with Dhampir and vampires alike is that they are so ingrained into popular culture, and the term vampire now is used for people just sucking the life out of you for being around them, let alone sucking your blood. What is interesting about Dhampir though is that they can get by without ever showing their vampiric side. Yes, they may have silver and garlic allergies, and if so, my nan was a Dhampir because she hated both of those. So they could, in theory, be amongst us, and we'd never know, and they'd never have anyone's blood on their hands either. I think the concept of the birth of Dhampir is the only silly thing about them. The idea that they don't rip out or feed on their human mother, most of the time, I hasten to add, whilst in the womb is silly. We know that babies are dumb, and they have instincts, so why wouldn't they attempt to feed on their mother if surrounded within a warm, blood-filled body? Also, they're meant to be super strong, so the idea that they don't just rip their way out as they come out of their mothers during birth feels like it's glazed over. But hey, I love all those modern media bits that I mentioned, so if they keep giving me Dhampir content, I'll watch it. I'm sad to see that the Blade movie got cancelled again, but also glad to see Wesley Snipes reprise his role in What We Do in the Shadows, which is a hilarious vampire comedy show. If you've never watched it and enjoy vampire comedy, you really should watch it, it's amazing. I also just want to add, impromptu, that Twilight really does show the drama of having a Dhampir child. And if you really want a graphic depiction of probably how this would go to giving birth to one of these things, and don't get me wrong, the horrible CGI baby they used, oh, it's so awful. But that's a true depiction of what I imagine it was like. So, there's that. But what do you think? Did the Dhampir roam Eastern Europe with their vampire parents? Let me know on social media. I'd love to know what you think about this one. A great monster to finally cover. Vampires are some of my favourite monsters to talk about, and a half-human version is totally more interesting, and I really love the Blade series, honestly. Next week, though, we're heading over to one of my favourite mythological places, and that is the beautiful Philippines for a slightly vampiric monster themselves, but more of a horrifying demon. If you hear a baby crying in the wilderness, just keep on walking away from the Tianak next time. For now, though, thank you so much for listening. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give it a rating on the service you are listening on. I've got loads of social media for any questions or suggestions on what monsters to cover next, and I'd really love to hear from you. The social media handles for TikTok, YouTube and Instagram are Myth Monsters Podcast. The Twitter is Myth Monsters Pod, and Blue Sky is just Myth Monsters. But all of our content can be found at mythmonsters.co.uk, and you can find us on Good Pods, Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon if you want to help me fund the podcast too. Come join the fun though, share this with your pals, they might love me as much as you do. But for now, stay spooky, and I'll see you later, vibes.